Hi, I'm John Badham, and this is Trailers from Hell. Now, The Wizard of Oz is number 10 on the AFI's list of best movies of all time, and it has such a powerful place in the pantheon of movies that we forget how it was kind of a flop when it was released. It lost MGM over $1 million, and it took it over 20 years to earn its outrageous cost of $2.7 million. I guess the pain of making it was devastating to everybody who worked on it for 138 12 to 14-hour days, 6 days a week. You wonder, why was something that looks like so much fun to do be such a horrible grind from start to finish? Well, I'm going to tell you, whether you want to know or not.
Many, many miles east of nowhere lies the amazing land of Oz.
First of all, there was a gaggle of 10, count them, 10 screenwriters and 4 directors. Louis B. Mayer, who was the tyrannical head of MGM, he tried to borrow Shirley Temple from his archenemy Darryl F. Zanuck, who was the head of Fox for the role of Dorothy. Well, Zanuck just said no way, so Louis B. Mayer had to put in one of his contract players, Francis Gum, aka Judy Garland, to play the part for the munificent sum of $500 a week. The part of the wizard was written for W.C. Fields, but he turned it down as being beneath him. Now, in the original book, Dorothy is 5 or 6 years old. So even when you took Judy Garland and you corseted her down and put a wig on her and dirtied her up a little bit, she still didn't quite reach that age of innocence. It was a real stretch for her to get there. So that after the first couple of weeks of shooting, when director number 2 comes in, who was George Cukor, he looks at it and said, well, she's just terrible. She's too overdone, she's overacting, and she looks way too pretty. So he goes up and he tears the wig off, throws it away, scrubs off half of her makeup, and gets her dirtied down a little bit. So now she starts to look the part. So when director number 3 comes in, who is Victor Fleming, he gets this wonderfully credible performance out of her, and she's not playing all that fancy schmancy stuff that Cukor was complaining about. The guys who had trouble were actually the Tin Man, the Scarecrow, and the Cowardly Lion. They had to undergo 4 hours of makeup 6 days a week. It was 3 hours to put it on, an hour to take it off. After all of that, they had these heavy, heavy costumes, and they were melting under the lights because it was over 100 degrees on the sets. They needed that much light because of the slow Technicolor film in those days. So these guys were sweating out there. They couldn't eat or breathe really well. And the only good time they had was lunchtime, when they could lay down and take their costumes off. Except for Burt Lahr, who was the Cowardly Lion. He had such a restrictive makeup on his face that he couldn't eat lunch at all. He had to sip cold soup through a straw. And then when he would go on the set, after every single shot, he would have to take the entire costume off because he was drenched and dripping wet, and they would try to dry it out before they could move on. And poor Margaret Hamilton, who played the Wicked Witch, she was always in jeopardy, always in dangerous circumstances. For example, when she disappears in front of Dorothy, they put her on a trapdoor that she's supposed to drop through, and then flame and smoke comes out around her. Well, by the second take, the flames actually set her on fire, and she has to go to the hospital. She can't work for 6 weeks. And so her stunt double comes in to ride the broom off into the distance. She gets on the broom, and the broom explodes, and she has to go to the hospital. And even poor little Toto, the dog, who was kind of skittish to start with, he gets stepped on by one of the witch's guards, and he can't really work very much after that. They have to find a double for him. It was quite a mess. When it goes to first preview, they had this kind of lackluster preview, and Louis B. Mayer comes out, and the first thing he says is, you got to cut that stupid song. What song are you talking about? Over the Rainbow. First of all, why is she singing it in a barnyard? And secondly, it's too long. Doesn't make any sense. Thank God for Arthur Freed, who was the producer, because he really argued with Louis B. Mayer and threw himself under the bus and got Mayer to allow it to be delayed a little bit. But when the movie came out, there were critics who said, oh, it's a stinkeroo. I mean, it just isn't believable, and there's too much broad comedy, there's too much sentimentality here. So, this really doesn't work. Well, what we forget is these critics were all adults, all grown-ups, and the people who got it were the children. The children right away identified with Dorothy as a lost person, a person abandoned, away from home, how frightening it was, and were scared spitless by the Wicked Witch. And they also understood that the Scarecrow was really clever, that the Tin Man really was kind, and that the Lion was really brave, and these were characters who were diligently searching for qualities that they already had. So it's no surprise to me that movies, great movies after that, like E.T., let's say, riffed on the theme of phone home, how appealing a theme that could be. And it's no surprise to me that we still find this wonderful movie, The Wizard of Oz, as something that's appealing to watch and is actually one of the greatest movies in our cultural heritage. So, if you don't believe that, I have got a bridge here I want to sell you.
The wonderful Wizard of Oz.
The Wizard of Oz.